President departs for Australia on a state visit. 2 killed in a shooting in Hikkadua. Question relating to overseas visits of chief ministers leads to an argument in Parliament. Man arrested after Manchester terror attack at Ariana Grande concert.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Prime Time News Bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Nicola D'Souza. We start off with our top story. President Maithripala Sirisena flew to Australia today for a 3-day official visit.
The President departed from the Bandaranaike International Airport this afternoon and is scheduled to reach Canberra, the capital of Australia, tomorrow. This is the first state visit made by a Sri Lankan head of state to Australia. 63 years ago, the late Prime Minister Sir John Kothalavala made a diplomatic visit to Australia. The visit by President Maithripala Sirisena would further strengthen the 7-decade bilateral relations between Sri Lanka and Australia. The Sri Lankan mission in Australia has made arrangements to accommodate President Sirisena.
Tomorrow, President Maithripala Sirisena is set to arrive in Canberra, where he will attend a few events, and on the day after, he is to meet Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, hold discussions and sign bilateral agreements. Stay with News First for more updates. From Canberra, I'm Maithripala for News First.
UPFA parliamentarian Rohita Abegunawardena, speaking in Parliament today, commented on the challenges that Mangala Samaraweera would face in his capacity as Minister of Finance. We take this opportunity to congratulate him. The President said that the cabinet reshuffle took place in order to move ahead as a nation. Because of this question, an issue arises whether Mangala Samaraweera was an obstacle for the country in moving forward. As always, you give me praise which has 2 meanings. When tragedy struck Maithripala, what I saw on the ground was something similar to the country that we took over in January 2015. Back then, the entire country was a garbage dump. We had been able to take over the stench of the mound of dead bodies, but we were still struggling with a large mountain of debt. However, Ravi Karunanayake and Ranil Wickremesinghe have been able to wrestle the country's economy back onto the correct path. We are at a point where Sri Lanka is well on its way to once again becoming the centre of the Indian Ocean. I have been given this post at a time like this.
It is now time for the next wave of reforms which will take Sri Lanka forward, which will make Sri Lanka as a modern, dynamic, democratic economy, and our target is to ensure that Sri Lanka becomes the hub of the Indian Ocean by the year 2025.
If you ask a regular 4th grader who was behind the bond scam, even they will say that it was the former central bank governor. Then if you ask him who appointed him, the child would say that it was Ranil Wickremesinghe who made the appointment. In such a backdrop, Mangala Samaraweera has been appointed as the finance minister. We are suspicious while giving you the Ministry of Finance, the Lotteries Board, Mahapola, Sri Lankan Airlines and Alkadua plantations have been removed from your purview.
Alkadua plantation meken galawala tiyena.
The scope has not been gazetted yet, so we cannot say it has been removed. If you act smart in the couple of days before the President returns, you might get these in your portfolio. Else Ravi Karunanayake could become a more powerful foreign minister. Just like Ranil Wickremesinghe removed the central bank from the finance ministry, there are other things that can be removed. Recently, Ravi Karunanayake received the award for the best finance minister. We are baffled as to why he was changed at a time like this. The question among the people is why the finance minister that is accepted by the world and Asia is not accepted in Sri Lanka.
Convening a media briefing today, the joint opposition was highly critical of yesterday's cabinet reshuffle.
Cabinet සංශෝධනය පිළිබඳ අපේ ඉතාමත් සරල විදියට කියනවා නම් මේක කන්දක් විලිලා මීයක් වැදුවා. ඇස් බැඳුම්.
In simple terms, this cabinet reshuffle is utterly useless. It's a myth and a deceit. What have they done to the finance ministry and the foreign affairs ministry, the 2 most important ministries? They have simply swapped the 2 ministers who are corrupt and incapable. It is similar to changing your pillow when you have a headache.
Nisaru Nishpala Kriyamargaya.
If a ministry is being changed at a time the country is in a crisis and is done for the sake of the country, we must endorse it. If statistics are proving that you could not accomplish what was entrusted to you and you come to terms with it, that must be endorsed too. But what is shocking is that for the first time in Sri Lanka's history, sectors like the Lotteries Board, Maithripala and Sri Lankan Airlines have been proposed to be placed under the wing of the Foreign Ministry. If this goes ahead, the image of the powers of the executive president will fall to an all-time low. Why? Because nowhere in the world does such a system exist.
The Unity Through Power Devolution movement convened a media briefing and commented on the cabinet reshuffle.
The only thing that happened in the cabinet reshuffle was the change of two faces. The foreign minister became the finance minister and the finance minister was appointed as the foreign minister. The SLFP or the president did not make a request for the removal of Ravi Karunanayake. This was a conspiracy from within the UNP and it was spearheaded by Malik Samaraweera. My hope of a cabinet reshuffle was the removal of Malik Samaraweera's portfolio. That ministry did absolutely nothing. Malik Samaraweera is one who entered into contracts with Mahinda Rajapaksa. This is an embarrassment to us all. Mahinda and Malik have formed an alliance. That is why the FCID can do nothing against him. They brought down Lokavithana to hand over the tyre factory. The president put a stop to that. Then comes the corruption of Minister of Highways Lakshman Kiriyalla. He appointed over 100 consultants. Mahinda Rajapaksa had 200 such persons and he has 150 of them. This is fraud and corruption. Funds were requested to make payments of 40% of the outstanding expenses incurred during Mahinda Rajapaksa's time. It was published in the newspapers as well.
The new Minister for Ports and Shipping, Mahinda Samarasinghe, assumed duties today. He took office amidst the blessings of the Mahasangha. His predecessor, Arjuna Ranatunga, and Deputy Minister Nishant Muthuhettigama were present at the occasion.
I extend my appreciation to Arjuna Ranatunga, who led the Ministry of Ports and Shipping. During the past 2 years, he rendered a tremendous service. He was able to overcome many challenges, and I will overcome the rest.
An event was held at the Ministry of Mass Media to bid farewell to Gayantha Karunatilaka, who takes up the new portfolio as the Minister of Lands and Parliamentary Reforms.
When I was attached to this ministry, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa had contacted me with regard to certain matters that are related to this subject. Members of the opposition also contacted me. There were issues at that time, but I managed to cordially discuss all these matters.
Yesterday, Newsfirst brought to the general public's attention the extravagance of the luxury vehicles used by cabinet ministers. Today, we look into a much more important aspect of a cabinet minister, their educational qualifications.
Sri Lanka's parliament consists a total of 225 members, out of which 47 are cabinet ministers. The government consists of an additional 20 state ministers and 25 deputy ministers. On the 15th of March this year, the Daily News newspaper, quoting Professor M.O.A. De Souza of the University of Peradeniya, reported that 94 of Sri Lanka's parliamentarians do not even possess the basic qualification of an ordinary level examination.
It is disappointing to say that 94 of our MPs do not even have S's or C's. They only have 25 graduates of the 225. So it is sad that MPs who do not even have S's or C's in their results sheet are now being maintained through public funds. This is unacceptable.
This, we are led to believe, is the educational standard of Sri Lanka's public representatives. In Singapore, with a population of over 5 million, 20 of the 22 cabinet ministers possess a minimum qualification of a postgraduate degree. Singapore's gross domestic product, or GDP, in 2015 exceeded $290 billion. India, with a massive population of 1.3 billion people, has 26 cabinet ministers and 49 state ministers. A majority of the cabinet ministers possess a degree in law. India's GDP in 2015 surpassed $2 trillion. The United Kingdom, which has a population of over 65 million, has 23 cabinet ministers, including the Prime Minister and Chancellor. 10 of the UK cabinet ministers are either Oxford or Cambridge University degree holders, while the others all have degrees at other reputed universities in the UK. Britain's GDP in 2015 was over $2.8 trillion. By contrast, Sri Lanka, with a population of over 20 million, has a total of 92 ministers in the government. This includes 47 cabinet ministers, 20 state and 25 deputy ministers. In 2015, Sri Lanka recorded a GDP of $82.32 billion. The educational qualifications of the ministers are not accessible. In other countries, this information is easily available. Why not in Sri Lanka? Newsfirst made a request from the Secretary-General of Parliament under the provisions of the Right to Information Act to disclose the educational qualifications of our parliamentarians. The Information Officer of Parliament has replied in writing, agreeing that a response to our request would be given within 14 days.
All political parties expressed their willingness to follow this criteria on the 12th of March 2015. However, we do not see these political parties taking steps to follow this. This can be seen in those groups that are in Parliament. In Singapore, it is mandatory for those wishing to be cabinet ministers to have postgraduate educational qualifications. Since of late, those representatives in Parliament who do not possess adequate educational qualifications were elected to Parliament through the power of their wealth and other means. In the same manner, those who were not qualified have been elected to similar positions.
Will the educational qualifications of MPs be disclosed by Parliament? News First is on the watch.
පල්ලෙහාල ඉඳගෙන ගිහලා ගොඩක් වෙලා යනවා අපිට ඉස්කෝලේ යන්න අප්ජල ව්‍යාප්තිය දීලා අපිට ඒක ගොඩක් සතුටුයි මම සිරස මහත්තයාට කියනවා ලබන ආත්මේ බුදු බවත් වෙන්නේ කියලා.
Let's come together to build this nation. Gamata.
The Financial Committee in Parliament has informed Speaker Karu Jayasuriya that the supplementary estimates presented to purchase vehicles for MPs cannot be approved. The chairman of the committee, M.A. Sumanthiran, informed Parliament this evening that the report on the matter was presented to the Speaker. He added that the report contains 3 recommendations.
Government grants 100% tax relief for investments in the north and east. W.M. Mendes and Company Limited commences a distillery in Calcutta.
Tax relief was granted for the creation of jobs. If that is being used to build distilleries, we are against it.
Strong opposition against the distillery at the Eastern Provincial Council and the District Development Coordination Committee meeting. Chief Minister of the Eastern Province reiterates approval will not be granted for a distillery in his province. Shakti FM and newspaper journalists assaulted when they visited the premises to report on the construction that is taking place without approval. 4,000 metric tons of paddy stored at the Maithripala airport given to W.M. Mendes and Company Limited.
Since 2010, it was a government policy to grant tax concessions to the north and east. However, there was no indication for such tax concessions for distilleries. Who gave the concessions for this? Who is the head of W.M. Mendes & Co. Limited? Arjun Aloysius. Whose funds have been used for this? We believe that the money they looted from the public has been invested in this. We questioned Minister Ravi Karunanayake. We directed the matter to the media. But Ravi Karunanayake does not listen to us. We posed this question to the new Minister of Finance, Mangala Samaraweera. Will you grant tax concessions for distilleries that is built using the people's money? We will be watching this closely.
New Minister of Finance, for your attention.
Moving on to stories from here at home now, 2 people were killed in a shooting this evening that took place adjacent to the Hikkadwa Divisional Secretariat.
Police said the unknown gunmen who arrived on a motorbike had entered the building and opened fire before fleeing the scene. 2 people were rushed to the Karapiti hospital for gunshot injuries. They were pronounced dead upon admission to hospital. The deceased are 26 and 34 years old. The cause for the shooting is yet to be determined and the Hikkadwa police are investigating the incident.
A suspect was arrested with cocaine worth 1.5 million rupees from Punchiborella.
The narcotics unit of the excise department carried out a raid and arrested the suspect at the access road to the National Hospital from Punchiburalla. 24 packets containing 68 grams of cocaine were seized from the suspects. Interrogation of the suspect revealed that he was transporting the contraband to a party in Kolpiti that is to take place tonight. He was produced before the Maligalkanda Magistrates Court and was remanded until the 6th of June.
A question was raised in Parliament today regarding the overseas visits made by the Chief Minister of the Western Province, Isuradeva Priya.
The current Chief Minister gained his position because the United National Party put forward Maithripala as candidate for the 8th of January 2015 elections. After being appointed Chief Minister, he has gone abroad on 18 separate occasions. If the Provincial Council is not making an explanation to the Parliament on these matters, I wish to ask whether the Western Provincial Council is a separate state.
I have to act upon the reports submitted by the Provincial Council. They are a devolved subject, and based on the report submitted to me, I inform Parliament.
If the Secretary of the Provincial Council or a ministry is giving false information, don't you have the authority to investigate them? Do you only have the authority to postpone elections?
The MP may have had an issue with the Chief Minister, but I have a responsibility to issue directions based on the reports provided.
I don't have any personal issue. I don't give legal advice to the Chief Minister. I asked, do you have the authority to carry out an investigation?
You can check with him. You answerable to the Parliament.
Honorable Speaker, this is the report given by the Chief Secretary. I have no mandate to act beyond that.
The joint opposition has a separate agenda in the provincial councils.
You should go act in a play.
Honorable member, sit down please. Honorable Vijay Siri.
Let's call the party leaders and decide how we are obtaining information from the provincial councils. We must determine whether we can get it from the Chief Minister or the ministers.
Speaking at the bilateral expert roundtable conference titled Social Market Economy in South Asia, German Experience of Fostering SMEs, Governor of the Central Bank Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy commented on the imbalance of labour and how it affects the poverty rate in the country.
We say we have a labour scarcity, but in fact what we have is we have an oversupply of labour in low productivity areas such as traditional agriculture, the public service, 1.2 million people driving three-wheelers. So those, we have plenty of labour. It's not that there's a labour shortage, but they're in the wrong place. We brought down our absolute poverty rate to 6%, 6.2%, which is excellent. But that is at a poverty line of $1.75. You increase it just to $2.50, and somewhere between 25 and 30% of the people fall in there. So we are getting people's noses above the water, about keeping their nose above water, but we're not giving them pathways to develop. So we need to think, this is not going to happen overnight. This is politically very difficult reforms.
The Governor spoke on the government's efforts to establish clear frameworks for its macroeconomic policy formulation.
What the government is trying to do is to put in place 3 clear frameworks for its macroeconomic policy formulation. In the past, we have tended to do too little, too late. We want to be much more aggressive. And, the definition of a central banker is somebody who takes the punch bowl away just as the party gets going. So we have not done that in the past. So we may be unpopular now as we do this, but that's what we need to do as far as ensuring the right macro fundamentals for the country.
The government's failure to fulfill promises and the impact of the drought on the farming community residing in Kuttigala and Maithripala are amongst the grievances that led to this morning's protest.
The protest was launched to bring to attention the fact that a sufficient amount of water was not released from the Mahavali River during the Yala season, and also to highlight that they are yet to receive promised government compensation for the loss of crops. This is how the protesters reacted when police intervened and called on the Ambilipitia Divisional Manager of the Mahavali Authority to address them.
We are all aware that the entire nation is facing a drought, so when we make decisions, we have to take this into consideration. This season too, the water was provided very cautiously. Immediately provide water during this season to the farmers who suffered a loss last season.
I hope our nation's leaders remember. Once all the farmers of the Hambantota district surrounded the houses of our leaders with mammoties and sickles in hand when the allowance for fertilizer was reduced by 1,000 rupees. This time around, if you deny us our allowance and water for our crops, we will not stop until we topple your houses.
It is these innocent farmers who worked hard to appoint this government. So we humbly request the leaders to now heed these farmers' requests without turning a blind eye.
2 people died in an earth embankment collapse on a construction site in the Mangala town. 1 person was seriously injured.
The land was being prepared for the construction of a high-rise building when the earth embankment collapsed. 3 labourers on the site were buried under the rubble. 1 person was rescued after a valiant effort and was rushed to the Mangala hospital. Later on, the other 2 were also rescued and admitted to hospital. However, both men passed away. The Mangala Divisional Secretary reported that an investigation is being carried out in relation to the construction in question. Navodaya Sankalpa won bronze in the boys 400-meter hurdles event at the 2nd Asian Youth Athletics Championship in Thailand. This was Sri Lanka's 2nd medal in the Games.
Navodaya Sankalpa won bronze in the event, clocking a time of 52.86 seconds. Sri Lanka's Ashmika Herath was not allowed to take part in the 2000 meters girls steeplechase finals today. The reason was because the game's regulations do not allow an athlete to take part in 2 long-distance track events. As she had already taken part in the 3000 meters steeplechase event on Sunday, she was denied the opportunity of taking part in the 2000 meters event. Ashmika Herath is also the 2000 meters steeplechase girls under 18 national record holder.
Well, that's a wrap of your primetime news for tonight. Thank you for joining us. For the News First team, I am Nicola De Zoiza.
And I'm Shrin Silva. Take care and good
night.